I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and welcome to a new series on the channel called Instead of This. I say series, and I do actually have more games suggested or ready to go, but I don't actually know how frequent this particular series will be, but it probably will show up here or there, just infrequently. It'll be a fun little surprise whenever it does, and it's kind of a combination of two different things I already do on the channel, but this is a slightly different version of that. And that is, I have a series called Play This, Not That, and this is going to be Instead of This, Play That. What's the difference between those two series? Play This, Not That is an in-depth comparison between two games. Instead of This, Play That is going to be a much faster summary of 5 games where I pick something that's probably a little bit more well-known and or mass market, and then tell you a game that I think does that better, which is also similar to the, I can't remember what I call it, but Pick 8 or something like that. I can't remember what it was, exactly what it is that I call it, but I have a series of videos where I basically suggest 8 different games if you like a certain game. If you like Wingspan, play any of these 8 games. So this is kind of a hodgepodge of those, slightly different format, just to keep things interesting, and because I wanted to do it. That's really, I just wanted to do it, and everything else is just me kind of explaining what I'm actually doing. Anyways, with that, today we are going to be going through 5 games. I'm going to be picking 5 games that are, again, either well-known or mass markets. Today is going to be focusing mostly on mass market titles, and then from there I'm giving you games that I think are better replacements for that, which means hopefully you stumbled on this video as someone who is new to the channel and found this because you saw like Connect 4 in the title or something like that, and you're like, Connect 4? What should I play instead of Connect 4? And I do have an answer for you. In which case, feel free to stay tuned on the channel, subscribe, and watch other videos. A lot of things will probably be a lot more in-depth as far as games in this board game hobby, because there are so many games in this board game hobby. But with that, let's go ahead and start off with our first game, which is Catan. Instead of Catan, I don't actually know where I'm putting the boxes. I'm going to be showing you Catan somewhere on the screen, one of these two sides over here. But Catan is a very popular game designed by, designed by Klaustober. One of those games that really mirrors the worlds of hobbyist gaming and, more accessible mass market, hence why it's referred to as a gateway game and is a gateway into the hobby. And it's one of the most popular, if not the most popular gateway game out there, with a just general, nearly worldwide recognition. Almost certainly if you are a hobbyist gamer, you know Catan, and if you're someone who doesn't know hobbyist games, only know Monopoly and Risk and all that, you probably still know Catan, but not necessarily quite as guaranteed. In Catan, you're going to be rolling dice and gathering resources. You're going to use those resources to build out your island as you play, and then try to continue that cycle. Build more stuff, get more stuff when you roll more dice, and then trade with other players, all while trying to be the first player to get to 10 points. There's a ton more to it as far as expansions, contents, variants, all that. It is a very popular game, but today, instead of Catan, if you would like to play Valeria Card Kingdoms. And don't get me wrong, I think Catan is an excellent game. I think Catan is a lot of fun, and it's worth playing. But for me personally, Valeria Card Kingdoms is the more fun version of what that is doing. Valeria Card Kingdoms has the same basic principle as far as we're going to be rolling dice every single round to gather resources. You're going to be using those resources to buy more citizens. Those citizens are going to allow you to roll more dice and get more resources. But for me, I find Catan, at least the base game of Catan, is fairly stagnant as far as what it's doing. I think Catan does thrive most once you add cities and knights as the expansion, plus possible other expansions. But Valeria Card Kingdoms, base game and or with expansions, I think has better art, not necessarily better production, but better art. I think it has more fun gameplay overall. It feels less stuck with other players. Like, you never get into a situation where you can't expand properly because other players are in the way, so it's a little bit more friendly in that sense, and I just enjoyed the overall vibe of Valeria Card Kingdoms more so than Catan. This is one of the games that's really lasted for me in my collection. I've tried other games in the Valeria universe. Actually, it's worth warning you about that. There are many other games in the Valeria universe. They are not necessarily all expansions to Valeria. There are expansions to Valeria Card Kingdoms. In fact, this is the big box version of it, but I think that there's so many other Valeria games, some of which are great, some of which are not so much. Valeria Card Kingdoms remains my personal favorite. Game number 2 is going to be Connect 4. Connect 4 is, well, it's Connect 4. You're going to be dropping little tokens down into a grid, trying to create a line of 4 tokens. It's one of those games that nearly everyone has played, very accessible, and it's just an easy game to understand, to pick up. You can teach it to a 4-year-old. You can also play it with an adult, and there's various levels of skill to the experience, but ultimately it's all about trying to line up 4 tokens in order to achieve your goal. And for me, I'm going to recommend you play TAC. TAC is from Peter... Sorry about the following over there. TAC is designed by James Ernest and Patrick Rothfuss. It's based on a game that was in his book, In the Name of the Wind. They kind of referenced TAC, and then they decided to make a full game from it, which I'm very grateful for because I think TAC is excellent. Now, you're not trying to create a chain of 4 of your pieces. Rather, you're trying to connect your pieces from one side of the board to the other side, not necessarily in a straight line. You can go in all kinds of wiggling and waggling, but you do need to have a chain of uninterrupted pieces of your pieces to the opponent's side. The base game of TAC is very simple to understand. You can teach it in 2 minutes and play it, and it's fun. I think it's still more fun than Connect 4, but nonetheless, it's kind of not super fun. But then you add layers to it, not expansions. It's all in this box over here, but they kind of walk you through it. They're like, do this over here on a very small grid. Then you have go to a 4x4 grid, and you add some more rules. And you add a capstone, which adds a new set of rules. And each set of rules, as well as the expansion of the grid, opens up the play area. The final game is not significantly complex. It's fairly, as far as the game mechanics go, it's very accessible and very easy to dive into, but the actual gameplay is so much more rewarding to me. There's so much nuance and depth to it. It's one of those games that has the accessibility of Checkers or Connect 4 or any of those kinds of experiences, while offering, in my opinion, significantly more depth to the overall gameplay experience. Definitely check out TAC. It is a delightful one. Our third game is Apples to Apples. I loved Apples to Apples. I used to play, before I got into the world of board gaming, I used to play Apples to Apples with my friends, and we had a good time because, honestly, you can have a good time playing Apples to Apples. Trying to get into the mind of the guesser and thinking, what would you go for? Like, what would you connect most with, depending on the cards that I play? And then when you win that, it feels very satisfying, and it's overall a good experience. But I do think Apples to Apples is kind of limited as far as the actual gameplay. Versus, I think Dixit has a lot more room for that exact experience. In Dixit, you are once again trying to think through how to kind of more fool the guesser to a degree. You're trying to fool the other players, but as this aspect where you're given a key phrase, and then players have to pick cards that have different art in it. This is the Disney version, but there's regular Dixit, there's Disney Dixit. I don't even know if there's other Dixits, but there's a whole lot of expansions. But the general premise is somebody says any phrase. It could be as simple as winter. It could be as complicated as man standing down from a planet. Whatever it is you say, players have to take a card and put it into the pool. Then you shuffle them up trying to figure out which card was the original and trying to vote for, every player is going to be voting for those cards. And so you're trying to basically figure out which card you have can most match the phrase given. And these cards are all trippy as far as the art they give, which usually results in just a ton of really good cards being placed on the table. And sometimes there's a really good card that wasn't the original, but it feels like it must have been the original, and those are such satisfying moments. I think Dixit has the gameplay style of Apples to Apples, but is one of the most accessible, most rewarding games in this genre. Our number 4 game is going to be Yahtzee. You've rolled dice, you've rolled them again, you've rolled them a third time, and you're trying to get Yahtzee in the game, and so many modern board games take that core simple Yahtzee mechanic and expand it outwards into much bigger game experiences. One of the most beautiful and also the most accessible as far as the gameplay is going to be Dice Throne. I have Season 2 over here, but there's so many versions of Dice Throne you can get, and you can get them in much more affordable, smaller boxes, and you can even get them with your favorite IP. Well, not necessarily your favorite IP, but if you like Marvel or X-Men, you can get them with your favorite IP. There's Dice Throne Marvel, there's Dice Throne X-Men, there's Dice Throne Season 1 and Season 2 that are more fantasy-based in the general genre of it. There's also a horror season. There's occasional fun sets as well, such as Deadpool or Krampus vs. Santa. There's all kinds of Dice Throne out there. You don't have to go all in on this, and in fact, I'd encourage you not to until you know if you like the experience. But if you like the general idea of Yahtzee, of rolling dice, of trying to match those up, Dice Throne basically takes that. It gives you a character who has a bunch of abilities that are going to activate depending on what you roll. Did you roll a large straight, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Boom, you can power up that ability and strike your opponent for 8 damage and give them a curse token as well. Did you roll a 3 of a full house, 3 of a kind and 2 of a kind? You have 3 3s and 2 2s. Boom, you can go ahead and activate whatever other ability you have. You're going to be rolling dice Yahtzee style, but you're also using those to attack your opponents. There's also going to be a defensive phase. There's going to be upgrade cards. There's all these other things going on. It's built on a foundation of accessible gameplay, gorgeous production, and then it gives you a solid back-to-back, a head-to-head game in which you're trying to take down your opponent, choosing from a variety of different opponents. Once you have multiple sets or whatever it is, even a basic set of 4 characters, there's different team-ups and matchups you can have that will give you a lot of fun to explore the nuance and depth that these characters provide, all while being very approachable and very accessible. And so that's our number 4 game. Replace Yahtzee with Dice Throne. Our number 5 game is going to be the last one over here, and this is Battleship. Battleship is a great game of trying to figure out where your opponent's ships are. You're guessing on a grid, where can I go ahead and strike such that I'll hit you with like C4, hit or miss. And then eventually you find someone and then you just go through a trail of trying to pin them down. It's one of those games that, again, nearly everyone has played growing up. But when you think about it, it's kind of a guessing game followed by a logical deduction of where things are, unless of course you're playing with your brother who likes to move their ships, and I've never understood why anyone will play with those people. Like, if you're moving your ships, it's no longer Battleship, it's just cheating the board game. That's a conversation for another day. The point more is that Battleship is one of those games that a lot of people have played and a lot of people have had fun with, but a lot of games have taken that to the next level. Now, this is one where I did go with my favorite in the genre as opposed to one of the more accessible ones. There are a lot of accessible hidden movement games that will give you the fun of Battleship, but in a game that offers you a lot more depth to the experience. But for me, I'm going with my favorite, and again, it's not the most accessible, but it is relatively accessible within the genre, while personally being my favorite, and that's Mind Management. Mind Management takes, it's from off-the-page games who takes comic books and brings them to life, so you might be familiar with Mind Management as a graphic novel experience. If you have, even better. But even if you aren't, this is a delightful hidden movement game. Hidden movement means you have one player who's trying to hide from the other player, moving across a board that is not super large, so you can kind of try to find them, and the other player is trying to close in on them using various abilities and actions to try to pin down and connect and get that player. Both teams often feel like they're in control of the game at different points. One player feels a little more in control at the beginning, and then as the trap starts to tighten around the other player, it tends to shift. And you can switch sides. You can have your preferred side. And this one gives you a basic game, as well as an advanced game, as well as a shift system. The shift system are these little packets that you can unlock that if you find one player is having an easier time than the other, you can give various abilities to the players to kind of balance things out. So the game really allows you to tailor around the people playing the experience, both in terms of the intro game, as well as in terms of the way the game is going to adjust the difficulty to the players that are doing better in it, making it a satisfying, hopefully satisfying experience for everyone playing. But if you like the premise of Battleship, if you like the idea of, ooh, you're hiding and I'm trying to find you, but you actually want to add a lot more than just guessing, and a lot more deductive and reasoning and thinking through what an opponent's going to do, and not just how they're going to set things up at the beginning, but how they're going to constantly adjust and move around the board in response to what you're doing. Like, Battleship is so static. This game, hidden movement games in general, and Mind Management in particular, are very much about not just being static, but trying to get in the mind of the opponent as far as how they're going to react as the net slowly closes down around them. And the reverse is true. How you think I'm going to react, and therefore how I'm going to react instead. It's a constant game of trying to be in each other's heads as the board develops, and it's such a satisfying experience. And so again, instead of Catan, try Valeria Card Kingdoms. It's delightful. If you like Connect 4, TAC is an even better, more abstract experience. Well, not to say more abstract, but it's a better abstract experience. If you like Apples, Dixit is a great accessible party game that will keep your family delighted. And if you like Yahtzee, Dice Throne is basically Yahtzee, but with powers and characters and art, and again, if you like Marvel or X-Men, characters you know and love already. And if you like Battleship, then definitely check out Mind Management for a much more in-depth hidden movement experience. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed these recommendations. I will be back at some point in the undetermined future with 5 more. Play this instead of that. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.